a real man, a man who has served in the capacity as the Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a young lawyer, an energetic lawyer, a ripper to the ears. I want to bring to you Kerri Symmonds. Kerri Symmonds. Kerri Symmonds.
Lord, Kerri, I mean, very man.
We voting for Kerri, we voting BFP. We voting for Kerri, we voting BFP. He is always there for the people in St. James Central. We voting Kerri, sing the song.
A pleasant good evening to you, comrades and friends. I am here tonight in support of the candidacy of Margot and also the candidacy of Desmond. And the lights have gone dim, even as I say so. That's what I call a dramatic entrance. And I want to speak to you on the most important thing that I think we can talk about during this campaign. How to put money back in your pocket. And in this campaign, we will unfold a series of solutions to you to a number of the problems that are facing you as a result of the mismanagement by the Democratic Labour Party. But we have to confront the feelings of the Democratic Labour Party so you can understand why we are in this position tonight. One of the things that they have liked to hide behind, one of the things that they like to tell you, is that you can't do no better. It has to be this painful or ridiculous way because there's an international recession. And I want to say squarely, here in the constituency held by an incompetent cabinet minister, that better could have been done. And I want to say why it better could have been done. They were too lazy, too indifferent, too slothful to apply themselves. And one of the things that we got to do as a country is to hold a referendum. This election is really a referendum on the performance of the Democratic Labour Party during the course of the last 5 painful years. They came to you and they said, job number 1 was cost of living. They said job number 2 was cost of living. They said job number 3 was cost of living. I should not have to stand here tonight to make an issue of the cost of living in Barbados if they had succeeded on either job 1, 2, or 3. The mere fact that we can still make that an issue means that job 1 to 3 has been failure. And if your first 3 priorities are failure, you can't lay claim to being a successful administration. That makes sense? And when we are at a situation where prices in Barbados have risen as much as 30% in the course of the last 4 years, 4 to 5 years, that ain't got nothing to do with the international recession. Yes, there was an international recession. But when you look at our neighbors next door, and I'm glad the chairman made reference to my experience in the Foreign Affairs Ministry and the Foreign Trade Ministry more particularly. Because one of the things that we always had to do was to make sure that Barbados, as part of CARICOM, stood on par with the rest of the region. Any achievements we made had to be measured stride by stride by the achievements that our colleagues in the region made, so as to establish whether, in fact, Barbados is performing above its fullest potential or below its fullest potential. And when you look at what has happened in terms of consumer prices in St. Lucia, you will find that, yes, there's an international recession, but the cost of living in St. Lucia has not risen anywhere near the 30% that it has risen here in Barbados. Same thing in Dominica. Same thing in Antigua. Same thing in Guyana. Same thing in Grenada. So what then sets us aside that makes this island importing, just like St. Lucia, just like Grenada, just like Dominica, just like Guyana, importing almost everything we consume from outside, where there's an international recession. What makes us so different? The answer is homegrown policies, bad homegrown policies by a bad government, inflicted on a good people, humbugging a good country, but by an administration that does not understand what it is doing to you. And what are some of those policies? First of all, they began by implementing a massive and excessive level of taxation in Barbados. And you know that they carry taxes on land tax, they carry personal income tax. They then turn around and say that liquor licenses have to go up, so every shopkeeper cost was more. And then they turn around and say that you had to pay more for professional fees. And if you were a lawyer like Desmond Sands, who was making a good set of money, then he paid more for professional fees. But then his clients got to carry a little bit of that because he's in business to make a profit. And so the fee is a ripple effect across the profession. The same thing with the doctors, the same thing with the pharmacists, the same thing with the accountants, the same thing with every single professional that you go to. Then on top of that, they say even if you got a bicycle, even if you had a bicycle, the fee for registering that had to go up. Road tax had to go up. They cut this country's backside to the tune of $110 million in brand new taxes as their first act. Not satisfied, then they turned around and said to you that the value-added tax had to go up. And this thing about the value-added tax is a very interesting thing, comrades and friends, because we have to understand what the impact of it has been. And you know, one of the things that we got to deal with is the fact that when they implemented the value-added tax increase, they told you that it was going to be a temporary thing. Remember that? Chris Sinclair said this is a temporary measure. It will be reviewed in 18 months. We're now 3 years later. And part of what you feel tonight is the repercussions of that excessive level of taxation in Barbados that is driving licks in your pocket and making the cost of doing anything in Barbados completely out of proportion to what it is across the rest of the region. So when the Democratic Labour Party's defense is mounted that there's an international recession, yes, that is true. But it is how you manage the recession as it arrives on your doorstep. And from the short, and Chris Sinclair stand guilty of terrible, catastrophic mismanagement. But in addition to that, Van Busschoot and Chris Sinclair also have to understand that the time has come for them to be called to account for the failing. And we are saying to you to give us the chance, take us into your confidence, so that we can put solutions in place. And one solution will be that the value-added tax on food, where it strikes you most painfully, the value-added tax on electricity, where it strikes you most painfully, will be carried back to the 15% from which it came as a first priority of a Barbados Labour Party government. And we are saying to you as well that not only do we take back the value-added tax, but that we have to find a way to make sure that we put money, as I said, in your pocket. And it means, therefore, that a number of things have to be done of a developmental nature in Barbados. And as I stand here in Christchurch, I feel it my duty to tell you a little bit about me. Because everybody here will know. I grew up just across the road there on top of Thornbury Hill. And I live a little further across the road in Wilcox. So I speak about Christchurch development, Wilfred Abrams, Desmond Sands. I'm talking about home. I'm talking about home. I want you to know that the greatest pain I feel, and when we talk in Oysters, I want to talk down there, because one of the greatest, wickedest, nastiest things done by the Democratic Labour Party to the people of Christchurch, many of whom can trace their connections back to that fish market there at the bottom of this hill. Many of whom can trace their families' connections by way of work and earning a living to the fishing community right there in Oystins or across the road in Silver Sands. One of the worst things that have been done to Barbados has been the failure of the Democratic Labour Party government to build out the fishing industry in Barbados to its fullest potential. But tonight we're talking about how to put money in people's pockets. So let me tell you what should have happened and what we're going to do to correct it. When I was in the Ministry of Foreign Trade, the European government sent officials down here, and they did an assessment of all the fish markets in Barbados. The reason why they did that was because Billy Miller and myself and our colleagues across CARICOM were working out an economic partnership agreement with Europe. You've heard of it. They call it an EPA, EPA, Economic Partnership Agreement. You don't hear a lot of talk from this government about it because this government has condemned themselves and us to perpetual failure. But the Economic Partnership Agreement said simply this, that in areas such as goods and services that we sell overseas, and let me not get too technical, a lawyer provides a service. If he wanted to sell the service in Europe, he is free to do so under the Economic Partnership Agreement. So you are creating new frontiers of economic opportunity. God bless you, sir. You're creating new frontiers of economic opportunity for the people of Barbados and by extension the people of CARICOM to do business in Europe. Now I want you to tell me which one of them, the little Lilliputian out here, what he calls himself, the one in the high heels shoes. Have you ever heard him speaking to you about that? He is supposed to be a minister of culture. People in culture sell a service called entertainment. They, in the Economic Partnership Agreement, all of Barbados's entertainers should have access to the European market without restriction so that they can ply their trade and earn a living. Have you heard about the development of that new window of economic opportunity for this country's entertainers? You heard nothing. But we have a government that refuses to take steps to develop the people that it represents. And that is the case with respect to the fishing community in Oystins as well. And I go back to that. When we left government, as I said to you, the Europeans had done an assessment of all of our markets. And what did the Europeans have to say? The Europeans said to us that they would take all the fish. Can you imagine that? Every single fish that Barbados could catch and did not choose to use for its domestic, homegrown consumption. In other words, that you and you and you then choose to put in your belly and your family belly, the Europeans would buy from you. But subject to one consideration. You had to transform that market. You had to make sure that when a fish comes off the ice boat, it is kept at a minimum temperature throughout all the period of time, right up to when it's being processed. When you bone in it, it can't be born on nothing like this here so that make out of wood. It has to be stainless steel that can be scrubbed down so as to ensure certain levels of transparency with respect to safety and hygiene. They say that you must not have it go to room temperature. It must be kept at a certain type of temperature. And the Europeans told us that the funding could be accessed through Europe to do that to the oyster market, to do it to every single market, the Bridgetown market. Every one of them could by now have been undergoing a period of transformation so as to allow Barbadians to benefit from an opportunity that prior did not exist, that was negotiated for you by a Barbados Labour Party government, led ably by Owen Arthur. But what we got? 5 years later, you have nothing to show for it. You have nothing to show for it. Not a fish has left this shore to go to Europe. And why? Because the lazy, good-for-nothing sons of who met them impasse the necessary legislation. A simple thing, that if you're exporting proteins, meats, that your chief veterinary officer and not the chief agriculture officer has to make the approval of the protein. Simple thing. Not done. 5 years. No effort made to raise the funds. 5 times they went through the estimate period, come to vote money in Parliament. No effort made to build out the capacity of that oysters market. No effort made to enclose it. No effort made to transform it so they got the stainless steel tables and counters replacing the wooden ones. An economic opportunity for poor black working class people living up here, walking down the hill every day to apply their trade in oysters. An economic opportunity for the families of men risking their lives every day and night in a fishing boat. Squandered by a government drunk and intoxicated by the fact that they got power, but knowing not what to do with it. And if this election is about anything, it is about how you, the people of Barbados, how you, the people of Gall Hill, see yourself. How do you value your own future? Did you not deserve the opportunity that was presented? And if that doesn't move you, let me tell you what happened across the pond in Dominica. During the last 5 years, have done a lot of regional consultation for CARICOM governments on international trade matters. And while doing some work for the government of Dominica, and while doing some work also for the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Prime Minister himself took me on a tour. And Ralph Gonsalves took me to show me his new market. We went into a fish market which was fully air-conditioned in St. Vincent. We went into a fish market in which you went through a series of doors in order to enter a room in which there were several 6 or 8 foot long slabs of stainless steel and seats for the ladies who were doing the boning and taking off all the scales and so on. We went into a fish market that was kept at certain specified temperatures approved by international standards. A fish market in which you didn't see a fly. You had tables on which there was pipes over the table and basins where you just turned on and you washed down the blood down a drain. And I said, my God, I grew up in a Christ church where there's one of the largest markets to be found in the Eastern Caribbean here in Oyston. And nothing like that in a Barbados that held its head high across the region. But in Little St. Vincent, they have built their first and are in the process of doing their second. What is the value that you here in Christchurch place on your future? And it's hard for people to tell you, I voted for Bobby Morris years ago and I's a Dems. It's hard for people to tell you, man, look, you know, our bar give you free education. My family was always Dems. This is a far cry from that which Barra created. If Barra came here tonight, he would not know that which he sees as a Democratic Labour Party. Couldn't understand it. That fellow from Short could not function anywhere near Barra. He's a minister who can do nothing, achieve nothing, sees a vision of nothing. But in the interim period, your future is being compromised. And I feel And it boils my blood. I feel that if these people across the water in St. Vincent can do it, and if in Dominica they can do it, what is wrong with the Barbados that led this region in that industry? Why can't we do it too? Why? But you have to have a will. And part of what we have to do in this election exercise is to give you the chance to talk with us, and we talk with you through some of these issues. There's a minister of culture up here, and he came to office and found a draft Cultural Industries Act. And what is the Cultural Industries Act supposed to allow entertainers and practitioners in culture to do? It is supposed to enable them, first of all, to access financing for their own development. It gives them a structure, certainty in law as to what you go through in order to make sure you can get some developmental assistance so that you can get, if you're into music, you're producing more and better and faster, you're more competitive. The Cultural Industries Bill was in draft when I left cabinet. The minister today has not yet brought a Cultural Industries Bill to the Parliament of Barbados. You're a member of Parliament. And so for any young man or young woman here who has looked at Alison Hines, who has looked at Little Rick, who has looked at Rihanna, and said, I would like to do that too, there is nothing to give them the impetus and the mobilization to help them in 2013. And we all know what the story has been for us, this nation's entertainers. Don't look at Rihanna because she's an exception to the rule. When you look at a man like Gabby, with all the talent that Gabby had, walking around, asking here, begging there, inquiring over yonder, can I get a little assistance because I want to do a little album? And we should not be subjecting our young people to that. Not in a field of entertainment, which is the field that is making more money than any other field in the world today. That young lady called Rihanna was just named as one of the best paid performers of last year, bringing in something, I can't remember how many millions of dollars. That is the future that we should be directing our young people to. And I say to you again, that this country is being failed because it has people like Lashley in the cabinet of Barbados who cannot find it fit at any corner here in Gall Hill to have skills being done. And this is what the manifesto gonna talk to you about. How we gonna reinvest in a youth economy. How the economy of the Barbados Labour Party sees of tomorrow will be an economy speaking to the young people of this country, saying to them, look, we will find a way for you if you want to be a welder, a plumber, a mason, a carpenter, to get qualified in that. Trinidad is doing it. I want you to understand, Jamaica is doing it. What do? They have a thing called a national vocational qualification. They say everybody ain't going to do like Kerri Symmonds and go and want to do law. Everybody ain't going to want to do like Clyde Maskell and do economics. Everybody ain't going to want to do like Tyrone Barker and be a statistician. Some people want to earn a living using their hands, want to be into electronics. A man can legitimately say, I want to be an electrician. But you have to give him an opportunity here in Gall Hill to say, I am going to learn this craft and this skill. I am going to make sure that I have the necessary training that when I hold up my skills and abilities against some objective standard, that people can say, look, this man is as sufficiently good at what he does that we can give him a passing grade. And so therefore, if you use masonry, in Trinidad, you get an assignment done to you after you have been given, after you've been given your period of training. An assignment is given to you. This this structure needs to be built from scratch. Don't just tell us what you will do. Come and show us how you will do it, and we will time you, and we will then investigate to see how effectively you have built it. And the fellas set up and they build, and when done, a master mason does the assessment and says, this man is of the same competence as I am, and so he gets his national vocational qualification as a master mason. And with that, he is then able, under the rules of CARICOM, to come down here in Barbados and build houses. Which Barbadian child in Go Ahead tonight? Which one has been extended that same opportunity? And so while your government loiters and grows fatter off of your taxpayers' money, your children and your children's children are being left bereft of opportunities that are existing 90 miles away in Trinidad and Tobago. Why would you vote back in the Democratic Labour Party? Why? What's wrong with you? Why are you different? Why are you to be accorded less opportunity in the land of your birth than somebody who come from overseas but had the fortune of having a better and more forward-thinking government? For to rob you of opportunity in the land of your birth. And we feel that skills are the way forward for the youth economy. We feel that facilitating young people with opportunity is the way forward for tomorrow's economy. We feel that people like Lashley, they keep wearing the high heel shoes. They keep putting on the fancy things, you know, you like a lot of frills and so on his suits and so on. He could do well in the fashion model industry. But you gotta change him. You gotta get rid of him. He's pretty useless where he is. Give Margot a chance. I beg you, give her a chance. She brings to politics something that we need. She believes that you begin at the foundation, at the grassroots, and work with people to build them up. And that's why I've come here to speak in these terms, because I'm speaking to the developmental view of Margot Callender. I'm speaking to a developmental view shared by Desmond Sands. I'm speaking to a developmental view that Barbados must have if Barbados is to find its way out of this, the most difficult recession of all times. And I'm saying to you, it is possible to put money in people's pockets, even in the middle of a recession, if only you're prepared to try to think outside of the box. But you have a government whose approach to the recession has been, I surrender. Lord, lettest thou thy servant depart in peace, according to thy word. Mine eyes have seen the glory. That cannot be the approach that you bring to development of a country. That cannot be the approach that you bring to leading a country out of a stiff and challenging economic period. But that's what they do. And we have, at every level, for those of you who are senior citizens, we got plans for you too. For those of you who are on getting the reverse tax credit, you get one? Well, let me tell you about the reverse tax credit. Because it ain't high enough, that got to go up. A Labour Party, if elected, gonna make sure that we cap that a little bit. You're going to get some more people involved in benefiting. We're going to make sure we bring in more. Because only if you have more in your pocket can you circulate more in the Barbados economy. If I don't have anything in my pocket, I can go and ask my friend over yonder, I want you to cut my hair. I will start home and have the madam do it for me. If I ain't got nothing in my pocket, I can't can go ahead and tell a painter I know I want you to paint my house. I will do without painting it, or try my best to do it myself, because I ain't got nothing in my pocket, I ain't got nothing to circulate. That is what has happened to Barbados. Priscilla has visited austerity and hardship on you. You have nothing to circulate because you picking when the month comes who bill to pay. That's what I do. I'm sure that's what you do too. And what we're saying is let people have a little bit more, not to lick out and spend overseas in Miami. And we believe Bajans have more sense. We believe that Bajans want to be able to say, look, let me go down the road here and get a youngster to come and help me here in the garden because the weeds get too long. But rather than that, you have old men. In my constituency, I came across a pensioner, 70 years of age, pushing a lawnmower. And they said, but we're doing all this strenuous work, you're very robust. He said, Kerri Symmonds, I ain't really able with it, but more importantly, I ain't able to pay a boy to do it. And that is where the problem is. So I'm asking you as I see the light flashing, think on these things. Think on these things. This election is about bringing correction to the misdirection that has hit you hardest in your pockets and is humbugging your lives. The Labour Party is here not to get power, not just to be back in office, but to try to rescue Barbados from the economic morass and misfortune that it is floundering upon. And we are asking you to give your support to our candidate in this constituency and our candidates across Christchurch. You have seen the failure that is Dennis Law. Oh, good God, the man is worth absolutely nothing. You have seen the failure that is Lashley. He is worth almost as little as Dennis Law. You have seen the failure of John Boyce. I don't think he has built a road since he has been minister. I cannot see why we cannot have all 5 Christchurch seats, and I beg of you to deliver them. Good night and God bless.